Looking at that method we created in the last clip, basically we call into the method runs until it's done, and then it exits. Well, there are actually three reasons a method will exit. One is that it reaches the end of the method, which is the case in our showSum method here. You can also put a return statement in to indicate that you want to exit. And there's a third scenario, which is when an error occurs. Now, we're going to talk a lot more about the way the error situation is handled when we get to the module and exceptions. For now, we're going to focus on these first two scenarios, reaching the end of the method or having a return statement. So when a method is done, it returns back to wherever it was called from. Right? So in the case of our little showSum function here, if we have our code where we created the class instance, and then we called showSum, if we had another instruction after that that printed out a message like I'm back, what's going to happen is that when we call m.showSum, that's going to pass control into our showSum method. It will do its work, which is print out that 8.9 three times. And then control is getting passed back up to the caller, which will pass control to that print line I'm back, which then prints that message out. Now, if we wanted to, we could put a return statement here at the end, and it would actually work exactly the same. In that case, we'll be exiting because it hit the return instead of the end of the method. And in this scenario, it doesn't change anything. But the return statement does not have to go at the end of the method. Imagine if we had a slightly different call here. Is that when we call showSum, instead of passing 3 as the last parameter, we passed a 0. Well, what would happen in that case? Right, is we'd call into showSum, we would do the work to add the numbers together, and then our print statement wouldn't do anything. So basically our showSum method would actually have no real results. Now in this case, we're just doing something very simple, adding, but in many methods, you may be doing a lot of work that you end up not using. So it's often useful to check your parameters at the very beginning of a method, and if certain criteria aren't met, you just go ahead and exit. Right? So if we actually go ahead and make a little more room in our method here, what we might do at the very beginning is say, well, if count is less than 1, well, we know we're not going to do anything, so we're just going to go ahead and return. Right? So in this case, what would happen is we call showSum, control is passed into showSum, we check count, which is 0, so we simply exit back out and print our on back. Right? We end up not doing all that work that we weren't going to use anyway. So the return statements can be placed anywhere inside your method that makes sense for the work that you're doing.